I am Chris McFadden, and welcome to AI Right. It's great to be back. It's even better to have Megan back. Hi, Megan. How's it going?
Hi, Kirsty. It's lovely to be back. I feel like I'm slowly getting used to being back in the world of work after a 6-month maternity leave break.
Oh, right. Was it only 6 months? I thought you were off for slightly longer than that. But yeah, getting back into the swing of things. When did you get back to work?
I started in the middle of November. I've been back for just shy of 2 months now.
Superb.
Starting to feel like normal. The juggle is real.
Well, it's good to see you and good to have you back on the show. Andy and Ishbel, it's great to be joined by you. How are you both?
Great, yeah, good. Good to be back and see you all.
Fabulous.
Yeah, and we're sporting some Christmas jumpers. Well, some of us are.
I know.
Some of us didn't get the
You need
memo.
to get shopping, Chris. There's no excuses at all.
I know. It's disappointing as well. I went to the shops at the weekend, actually Friday, and didn't manage to pick one up. It was Steph's birthday over the weekend, so I was out to see if I could get her something for Christmas. Ended up just at the Christmas markets having a mulled wine, and there's live music down there now, which is brilliant.
Easy done.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
It's my birthday next weekend. I hope you got me something.
I don't know. It'll be hard to top the Star Wars themed Christmas jumper. I must admit.
Good dodge. Good dodge.
But as you've got a second copy of your book out, or maybe send you your own book for your birthday.
Well, the second edition has been out since last September. I am being approached about a third edition.
There's a plug.
I know, there you
Good.
go.
But you're not quite busy enough, Andy.
I know. Keep your eyes peeled. If I get a spare 20 minutes a day, I might get something done. 27. I know.
The aim would be to fill one of the shelves behind you with, but you'd maybe need about 10.
With the dish, exactly. Yeah, I know. At least there's a lot of books.
So that we're back with a new episode to discuss can AI teach me, and essentially talking all things AI and education. So we wanted to get back chatting about topical aspects of AI, and there's probably not much bigger at the moment. So we wanted to kick things off by asking, is AI a good teacher? Can you use it to learn? Do you use it to learn? Now, that's an open question to everybody because obviously, in what you do as data scientists and data science leaders, I'm sure you are still obviously learning all the time, and especially looking at how different ways you can adopt AI into the workplace and personally. But also we want to have a good conversation on the youth of today, people obviously going through different levels of education and how AI might be impacting that. So open up the floor. So can we use AI to teach us, and how are we doing so?
Absolutely, you can. I think it's like one of the things I use daily. It's like any questions, like you would look it up and see what the answer is, obviously, or finding out kind of the summary information on something. But the thing is, you have to have enough knowledge to know that what you're reading is right. So I think that's like where one of the kind of main dangers is, that if you really don't know that much about your topic, you could be completely, reading a hallucination that it's just made up. So I think it's just it's a caution around it. And obviously I think there's areas where it could be used in the wrong way. So like I recently ended up, talking to people on the train, as you do after the pub, and they were like in education and how kids were using AI to like basically do their coursework for them. And how would you spot that and things. So there's obviously like that kind of area as well to be cautious of from like an education perspective.
Yeah, I think that kind of piece you're talking about there, Ishbel, there's a lot of short-term gains you can get from using these AI solutions that I worry sort of ultimately de-skill people. So, like you say, if you're doing it for your coursework, I think it's a bad outcome if people just say, you get a question and you just feed it to the bot. A great example I saw was someone shared a sort of short video meme, and it was like a college instructor doing one of those pop quizzes that you now get in your laptop. It used to just be they would put up the questions in the PowerPoint or whatever. They put on the board no AI, and as he's doing it comes out, and there's a woman there just copying and pasting everything into ChatGPT and getting the answers, and she's getting 100% obviously on this live quiz. And I'm just thinking to myself, that's such a short-term gain. Well
Yeah,
done.
there's no depth. There's no depth in your knowledge. Like you'd soon get found out. Like if you were
don't learn
questioned on it.
exactly. You're not actually learning. So you
Yeah.
get to the exam or you get to a real life situation and you don't know. And some people might argue, oh, but they're learning how to use it the way they would in the real world. But I still think the best users of AI will be people who are good without AI. It's just a sort of addition on top. So I like using it for things like, if I'm doing a new coding project, I'll sort of pitch some ideas, brainstorm a little bit and say, does this follow best practice if I organize my app structure this way? Or I've decided to write unit tests using this sort of, organization or this structure. Is this deemed best practice or is this the right way to do it? And it gives feedback. And from that, I feel like I've been learning. Whereas if I just said, generate me all the code, which some people are doing, I don't know, I feel like you just don't have a grip of what you've written or you haven't written, sort of. And then when you get asked questions about it or you have to extend it in any way or something goes wrong, you're not in the place where you can actually tackle any of those questions. That's my kind of view.
I think there are like some obvious downsides, but some of the upsides I don't think they're talked about that much. Like if you're learning something for the first time, it can be quite scary to like open your mouth and just say something in fear of getting it wrong, especially when you're learning a new language, whether that's a programming language or not. I feel like the idea that an AI is this judgment-free partner to learning is just sort of lovely, especially for a kind of kids going through like the later years of education. They're, very self-conscious. They don't want to be saying things that are incorrect in front of their teacher or their peers. And then they've got sort of an judgment-free space to practice and to run through exam prep. And there's something quite nice about that sort of safety net. Obviously, they have to know whether or not what they're getting back in return is correct. And there has to be like that foundational level of understanding there in the first place. But I think it does give such a nice environment for someone that's not really sure of themselves.
Yeah, and it's such a good way to like, say, you could put in, this is my understanding of something, is that right? Or just, if you read something and say, okay, give me a summary of that, like, what's the kind of gist of it? So it's like not as, if you read, I mean, obviously if you read reference documents or you're looking at something extremely complicated, it's overwhelming and you don't know where to start, like developing your understanding. So it's so good that way to like start to, understand the concepts of things so you've got an established kind of basic knowledge before you then delve in ideally into like understanding a kind of bit more of the depth about it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And it doesn't get tired. To your point, Megan, about having judgment free, but someone I can't remember who it was. Someone I follow in Twitter X, which I'm going to leave. That's a separate story. But they're a ML sort of researcher, and they were saying we're probably going to unlock, if things go well with this, we'll unlock way more geniuses than we probably did before, because you can imagine some young girl, some person somewhere where they're just, they're fascinated with maths, for example, and they can just keep asking and asking and asking questions, and they'll just become sort of exposed to way more depth, to your point, Ishbel, than they would have maybe if they were sort of in a traditional education setting and waiting for the topics to come to us. You can just sort of keep asking. I know I do. I get a random idea and I'll just be like, oh, what's the way people do this or whatever. I still Google to complement that, but I think it's a good point, Megan. There is a lot of upside, and I do like that judgment-free aspect and the fact you can just try things and iterate things. And
even what you've
you
just said, the fact that it's like much more interactive and it's like a two-part way of learning.
Yeah.
Like I think some people are really good at a lecture style, information is coming at them and they're just like taking it in, writing it down and digesting it. But I don't think everyone finds that an easy way to take on new information. So some way of like interacting. I know I've always said that the way I learn something is to actually go and apply it. This is maybe a middle ground. You're not just hearing it, you are having like an active part in a two-way conversation compared to lecture style learn.
Absolutely.
So in essence, if it's applied in the right way, if it's used in the right way, if you've got ways of validating that the information you're picking up is right, and then you're obviously, if you're using the vast amounts of information and able to absorb it, then there's a lot of positives there. But you have to be mindful of using it in the right way and making sure it's ethical and all that type of stuff.
Yeah, and I think what the ultimate goal is for education. So there's some things that are kind of worrying me where I'm seeing that we're sort of, the AI agenda is being pushed so heavily that education organizations, like teachers, schools are now partnering with OpenAI, for example, right? So that's a specific case, but there's lots of cases going to come now where educational organizations will feel the pressure to just infuse AI without thinking how. I'm not saying there's professionals there who won't think about that, they will, but they'll have a lot of pressure to just, get AI on the book. And it could be kind of very, very poor in terms of outcomes if we're not thinking what's the ultimate goal. It's like, I always compare AI sometimes to cars. I always think about that. It's like, because I can drive everywhere doesn't mean I should, right? Because I will become very fat and lazy and sort of not kind of be a fit human individual. Not that I am. But, it's kind of like AI there, just because I can use it to answer all my questions doesn't mean I should. Is that really what the outcome I want for myself? It's more, I can use it to get faster to my destination in some cases, but I also have to build the muscles that I have myself. That's kind of the way.
It's a good way of pitching it, because it ultimately is just a tool. One of all the other tools that you can have to go learn. And if you're using it inappropriately and you're not enriching your understanding of something, then you've used that tool incorrectly. But there are ways to use it that will be helpful and are the right time and place. I mean, we're all old enough that we were arguing about whether or not you could use calculators in certain exams at school. Slightly different.
How old were you, Megan? Were you there when calculus came out? Or you mean scientific calculators, etc.? When they were,
I think I was in the class between scientific calculators and full-on graphic calculators. Like, right. So
now it's Gen AI.
Yeah, now you can teach me to within a month, I think.
No, to be fair, you provided a really good context there. I still read print books. Do we all still read print books? What's your thinking on that? Are they going out the window? Or are you just going to? Some Silicon Valley people are sort of saying, books will go out the window because you just ask your Gen AI everything you want. What do we think? Ishbel, what do you think about that?
I did think that, because somebody left recently and they got given like a Python book, and I thought, are you really going to open that book? Like, are you?
Joking.
I know, but I just, obviously we'd want that for Christmas.
Yeah, one of the reasons you wouldn't want to open that way.
I've read a leadership book recently, but if it was a technical coding book, I'm not sure I would pick it up, to be honest.
See, I love techie coding books because the way I think about it is it's like exploration, what's it called? Exploration, exploitation sort of trade-off, right? And just like in reinforcement learning or something. For me, a book is good because someone does present to me. You were talking, Megan, about, lectures and stuff. Someone has pre-thought, what are the important topics? Now, I can ask ChatGPT, whatever. But if it's a human or an author or source I trust, that helps guide me what topics I should think about, how they relate to each other, and then I can deep dive and apply it in different ways with AI. That's kind of how I've been doing it. That's interesting. What do you think, Megan?
I've veered back and forwards on this all the time. So when I've got time to spare, I would prefer a book. I like having a very long, structured narrative that has a sort of start, middle, and an end. But it depends how much time I have available. So, pressures of balancing work and parenting don't always leave lovely novel reading time. So there's something nice about being able to just dip into an idea really quickly and not have to read the whole book. And I think the summarization ability of Gen AI is really helpful there to sort of give you a quick synopsis. And even if that's just helping you decide whether you want to dip in further and put that book at the top of your priority list. But I definitely like...
That's what I've got on my desk, right? I'm dipping in and out of them, but it's like, I agree with you. I think I like the structure, but it's interesting.
I think like if it was a topic, then I do like that. It's taking you through the journey of what you would need to learn and those important points, different chapters. Like I am on board with that. Like, but I think what Megan said earlier about having, that person there, like you're basically like tapping into an open resource, a lecturer, an expert potentially at any point of the day that you can ask any question out without judgment. So like, you could be, arriving to pick up your kids from school and you're like, oh no, I've just been thinking about this work problem. I'm just going to dip in. Whereas you don't need to, it doesn't need to leave your head. You don't need to wait to go and look up a book or whatever. You can have the answer and you could Google it. but it's like such a more refined way of looking up exactly what you want to know and have the chance of having it answered immediately, basically. Like, I do that so often, it's ridiculous.
The other thing that I have going through my head when I decide which to use is how much does it matter if I get it wrong? Like, if I ask a question and I need the answers to be absolutely spot on the money, I'm probably not going to go to ChatGPT or something like that. If I need to be able to trust the answer, I'll probably find like sources that I believe in, whether that's like papers or go to the person that I think knows more about it, the book that I know captures the subject. Like, you've got a sort of list in your head of like these authoritative sources where if something really matters, you're going to go there first. And then if it's like more, I don't know, if it's more informal or something that you can go and check easily afterwards, you'd maybe go to like a Gen AI tool. But what feels really important is like teaching, I think Andy, you were talking about this, teaching like kids and people that aren't yet sure who to trust, how to like pick the right source for the job, and then how to like reference that source so that they are clear where it's coming from and it's not just regurgitating facts that are coming from ChatGPT as if they're 100% trustworthy.
How would you do that then? So, for instance, to reference it and take the source. So, say you prompt some sort of question to ChatGPT and it gives you back an answer. Are you then asking okay, can you provide me the source to why that's correct? Is that what essentially is as easy as that? Or
well, a lot of solutions now out the box. So like ChatGPT's got browsing capability now. A few other Gen AI solutions have had that. If you build a retrieval augmented generation RAG sort of service, you can do this. But there's basically ways to extract the sort of grounding knowledge that the LLM is using to generate the answer in certain solutions, right? And you can pull it in and basically provide a reference. Perplexity, the sort of AI-powered search engine, they've been doing this for ages, right? So basically what they'll do is they'll do kind of different search techniques. They'll get information. They'll use a LLM to generate a response on top of it, but they'll know which parts they're providing as context and be able to refer back to it. So there's there's ways to do that. But even to that, Megan's point, right? I remember playing with Perplexity, to be fair, a while back. We're not picking on particular tools on this podcast. This is true for them all. And I remember getting into a right argument with it because I said, what analyses or reports are there on, I can't remember, some specific topic. It was maybe AI ethics or something else. And it gave me a reference, and I clicked the reference, and it was on a totally different topic. And I said, that reference you've given me is wrong. And it is the classic LLM chatbot thing. Oh, I apologize, here's an updated reference. And that was wrong. And then it just kind of got in this cycle, and it just couldn't really, it just hallucinated something that in the context made sense.
There were those situations of people quoting legal cases that didn't exist.
That was amazing, that one.
Whereas I think, again, it was ChatGPT had just hallucinated a whole series of cases to support an argument that someone was trying to make in a court in America. And I think, again, like, you can get a source, but to go and check that source, you need to do a whole lot of extra legwork that I think it puts into question whether the tool has saved you much time. Like, if you're needing something to be accurate, you've got it to output a kind of answer for you, and you need it to be valid enough that you need to go and check all the sources. You could have spent so much time that you could have just gone straight to source, got the information yourself, and maybe used it more directly.
Yep. I was doing a wee bit of research before we come on, and it was on the government website about how they're using AI in schools at the moment. And the big thing is, it reminded me, we talked about human and AI teams, so it's all about how AI will support the teacher and a lot of taking away a lot of automated tasks. And one of them was about how it could like mark essays and things like that. And I started to think to myself, well, one of the biggest concerns, I'm sure for a lot of parents, are my kids using ChatGPT or a different LLM to write essays or write answers for it, and essentially how much are they owning that? And then what I started to think about, well, if that's what's writing the answer for you, and then it's grading its own essay, where are we just obviously in a bit of a catch-22 situation? So if you were listening to this and you weren't too clued up in exactly how that works, what would your kind of thoughts be around that? I mean, could that be the case? like in terms of what marking the thoughts were on it.
You mean could an AI be marking its own homework?
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. I mean, I think the value that teachers seem to be getting out of these tools is maybe more on the side of like lesson planning and structuring the learning kind of plan for a class rather than marking. So I wouldn't go into...
No, 100%. You're right, but that was one of the things that listed this to say that this is potentially how it could support. So then I was like, well, is that good? Is that a good thing?
It's fascinating. I think like the ethics on that are huge because you've got everything from like what bias is that coming to mark your class's homework with? Like what does that deem as the right answer? Is it going to take your marking sheet and work with that exactly, or is it going to put some kind of understanding on top of that? You've got to really be able to trust that it's going to apply exactly the criteria that you want to as a teacher. I think we've seen through like COVID, the mass kind of AI application for exam results and the way that can then on a kind of population scale add loads of bias. It's quite a lot of worrying ethical dilemmas with that.
I wonder if you could use AI though to identify where AI has been used to write something. You know, could you put it in and say, can you find some common theme that this has been generated by AI? Surely it
apparently
could
not.
be able to. They can.
No. Yeah. So study after study keeps showing that watermarking doesn't work. Classifying AI generated content doesn't work. But to talk about the ethical point you're saying, Megan, there's cases in America now, I think it's in America, where you've seen people are still using AI generation detectors, even though they don't work, and stopping people from submitting their coursework or applying to university. You know, they're blocking them when they really shouldn't be because these things don't work. So there's a lot of recoil going around.
It's like using lie detectors.
It's like using lie detectors. That's a great example. So lie detectors, I think, under some conditions and whatever, have some predicted. I don't even know, actually. Maybe they don't. But these things definitely don't. So like a dodgy lie detector, it's like a wonky wire on a lie detector. But there's kind of, it's really hard to do. There's all this stuff about trying to watermark them. There was some studies around, putting subtle statistical biases in the data that's produced from certain LLMs. So, it sort of has a preponderance to say certain words. Could you analyse that? Mm-hmm, yeah. Time and time again, they find it's too hard to detect. And now they've got the stuff where, and this is maybe a slightly different topic, but it's interesting nonetheless. Someone's just done a study where they showed, did you all see this? They showed Elizabethan and other kind of famous poets side by side with AI generated imitations. And they said people couldn't tell the difference, or people preferred the AI one.
That's scary.
No, but the thing about that was, right, and this feedback to the point about, understanding the actual limitations. To me, the question's sort of wrong, because they're like, what do you prefer? A lot of people don't like Shakespeare. So it's like, it's not a fair question to ask.
And now...
Because they were saying, I mean the AI smarter than Shakespeare, but it doesn't.
And
that's not the right
you've
question.
You've just killed off our English teacher demographic. I wish you'd asked.
I want to be convinced. I didn't say I don't like Shakespeare. And I think it's an important part of our culture that's forced upon people. But it's just, there's all these kind of questions that come into it. But yeah, Chris, I think if we get to a world where, I'm writing an LLM to talk to your LLM, I just don't see the point. What have we done? I can imagine there might be if you maybe stipulate there's a human in the loop somewhere. So maybe it was not a handwritten essay, but a kind of, you've typed up in a word processor that's air-gapped or something, so it's just your own thoughts.
We're going to regress. We're going to go backwards, or it'll be more practical exams where you have to sit and be questioned in person.
I think they're going to have some stuff like that. How else are they going to know that you've learned stuff? But then it could be that, you do that for your inputs and then they use an LLM to score it. Or it could be vice versa. It could be if you're allowing the use of LLMs to generate it, maybe someone has to manually mark it just so there's a human in the loop somewhere. I don't know the answer, but I kind of think it's like when people are talking about, I could use LLMs to write my emails and I could use LLMs to condense all my emails. And you're like, all we're going to do is create tons more emails and process more emails and we're going to get net zero productivity again. So we need to think what the ultimate goal is, I think. But it's super interesting. I'm not sure the answers.
not much more kind of to cover on this, but just where you guys are at in your career at the moment then. So on an education piece, how, and I think you mentioned your process of doing it where you'll say, look, I've used this programming language to answer this question. Have I done that in the right method, or would you give me a different example? But is that mainly how you would kind of use it and interact with it, or is there different ways that you'll turn to it most days and ask it to verify what that you're doing or whatnot?
I do that, and then I like, we were talking about earlier, you keep asking questions. So even if it's something not for work necessarily, but it's just a random topic, I like the fact I can ask from a few different angles. But I will, to Megan's point, try and then verify what I get back. So if I ask about, if I read an article or something on genetic engineering or whatever, and I ask some questions about that, I know not to blindly trust everything it says, but I think it's good at giving me the themes, the important themes and how they interact, and what do people think about in this area, and what are the kind of important research topics, and what are the unsolved problems, those kind of big, high, sort of sweeping items. Whereas if I say a very specific thing, I understand that it could hallucinate that particular piece of information, and then I might be in trouble. So I use it for that kind of high sweeping statements, big picture thinking, brainstorming a little bit, and the odd sense check. And I really like using it when I'm programming for all of that. I've got a Copilot, a sort of free Copilot that I use. It's just basically a little bit of a smarter autocomplete. But I just like the fact that, when I start getting into writing lots of test cases, for example, it can just generate a lot of the boilerplate for me, and that's good. But I try not to just say, code me up this app, because then I'm not in control. So what I do is I say, I want to build a class that does this specific thing. Here's my idea for an implementation. How would you augment it? So yeah, just the way I said. But those sort of things, that's quite powerful, I think.
Perfect. Anything you'd like to add on to that, Ishbel or Megan?
Yeah, I mean, I am using it to, like say Andy's saying, unit test type scenario, write me the same, essentially similar code, but for all my examples, complete my code when I'm just, there's not enough hours in the day for me, between family life and working and all the other things. So yeah, efficiency gains are massive. I definitely don't get it to write code from scratch. It wouldn't really work for me in the context of my kind of day to day. But absolutely completing code, checking if there's another way to do things, make it more efficient, convert it from one language to another potentially, sometimes, and that's quite effective.
My last question then, Megan, would be to yourself then. So would there be a concern when you're bringing in grads, or just grads coming out of university when they've used LLMs to learn over the last couple of years and potentially to write code for them? Would there be a concern that they'd be misusing it in the ways that you just mentioned there, that they aren't using it to verify, but they are using it to essentially get them started?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, it depends what kind of working context you find yourself in as a grad, but there'll be some organisations that you join and you are explicitly not allowed to use any GenAI tool for code use cases whatsoever. So I think you need to be careful as a graduate that you've learned sufficiently that you can operate without assistance. Then if you're going to add it in, you need to make sure that you understand the way in which your organisation supports that use. Usually there'll be lots of rigorous quality checks if you're going to use AI to generate code and then implement that in a production system. So you might be able to use like Copilot or something similar to help assist you in writing, say, your test cases, like Andy and Ishbel have said, but you need maybe a peer to approve your pull requests. So the code you've written needs to be assessed by a human. You've kept a human in the loop so that there's no kind of generated errors getting introduced into the company's code base. But I think generally as a graduate, you need to be so careful that you're able to operate both without its assistance at all in case you're in an environment where that's not appropriate, and in a way that you just absolutely know that what you're producing is still good quality and you're not going to allow kind of massive production bugs to slip in.
Perfect. I think that's all we've got time for on today's episode, but great to see you all and great to chat about obviously the implications and the changes that AI is having across education, and we'll catch up soon.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.